Hello, and welcome to Beyond the Deal, a podcast where we go deeper than the numbers and we talk about all the tips, tricks, strategies that lead to success in life and business. Now, today on the show, my guest is Jay Bourgana. Jay is an actual buddy of mine who immigrated to the US from Morocco, and he has built a massive little empire for himself of buying businesses. So we do often talk about real estate on this show. However, buying businesses is a particularly trendy topic right now, and it is of great interest to me. So normally we might go a little deeper into the personal aspects, but you'll see in this episode, I ask a lot of questions about the ins and outs of buying businesses, and it is just knowledge bomb after knowledge bomb after knowledge bomb. I think you should really pay attention to some of the patterns, some of the things he says. I think you'll love about what he says about people and service. And just notice the pattern recognition in this episode because I think it will translate to success in your own life. Before we get into the show, I'd like to thank the sponsors of the show, Nimble Capital Group. Nimble Capital Group is a boutique investment firm. We invest in cash flowing assets across the Southwest. We buy real estate, we buy land, we develop real estate. So if you're interested in investing with us, please click the show notes and see the link in the description. And then secondly, if you are interested in learning how to raise capital, I take on 10 students every single month, and you can find that link in the description as well. Now let's get into the show. All right, Jay Bourgana, welcome to the show. So happy to have you here. So happy to see you again. It's probably been, over a year since we've actually hung out in person, but always a pleasure. So happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So Jay, for our guests who don't know anything about you, why don't we just throw them straight into the fire? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing at this current moment.
Well, I'm a small business acquisition expert. My thing is Rollups. So I put multiple companies in one industry together in a larger entity. And the goal is either to hold forever or exit at some point. So, and at the same time, I have the acquisition collective community where we teach people how to buy businesses and how to scale them and how to grow them. And I also run the Raising Lions community, which is a fathers group. We have 320 guys in the group and talk about how to raise healthy, happy, and resilient kids.
Oh man. Okay. So much gold to get into here. So many things I want to talk about as it relates to really the themes of this podcast in particular, which is about being healthy and happy, not just successful, right? But before we get into that, let's go back into your history a little bit. So you are not from the US. You are from the beautiful, beautiful country of Morocco. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got here today?
Yeah, so I grew up in Morocco. We're super poor family. I had to figure out how to get my financial certainty and some kind of base needs early on. And my parents divorced twice, so I had a lot of instability. Then I decided to work as soon as I could. So right out of high school, I went and worked for a French bank. I did everything from consumer banking, business banking, international trade, worked with them in Europe. And then looked around and I saw there's this ceiling in everywhere I went. And I decided to immigrate to the United States. I landed in Southern California. I started out in finance at first. I worked for a capital group, which, wholesaling mutual funds for about a year. And then I decided to completely shift away from finance and go into something completely different, which was manufacturing at the time. I worked for a large home goods manufacturer in Southern California, but had operations in China. Worked for them for a couple of years in ops in California. And then I went to China for about 5 years. I ran a 3,500 people operation, 1 million square feet facility, $1 billion worth of products that shipped every year to the Walmart, Target, you name it. And I enjoyed that very much until 2007, 2008, when the real estate crash happened and a lot of our customers stopped paying us. And then Bank of America came and took their line of credit. I thought that I had control of my destiny at the time. I was like a C-suite executive. I thought that I was on top of the food chain. I had control, but the change in the environment showed me that I did not have any control. So I came back. I started doing more turnaround consulting. Post 2008, a lot of companies were struggling. So they needed someone to come and help fix things, cut the overhead, help them prioritize what products to focus on, what things to do. So I spent about 5 years traveling across the country and around the world, helping fix companies, anything from manufacturing to food production to distribution. And I enjoyed that very much, because you save a company, you save a lot of jobs, you save, income streams for the community. So I felt a higher purpose in helping save these companies until I got kind of tired of traveling. At that point, I've been living in hotels for about 10 years. So I wanted to have an address, live somewhere. And so I came back to Southern California and started looking for a home. And some of my friends kept telling me how, it was 2011, telling me how it might be a good idea to buy because real estate is a good hedge against inflation. And we had printed so much money back then, so there will be a lot of inflation. And so I started looking at our homes. I bought my first place, and then I saw value go up around the same time I met my wife, and we moved in together, and we got married. And then I said, okay, well, this real estate thing look fun. You can make money pretty quickly as values are going up. So let me learn more. At the time, there was not a lot of education around real estate investing, not much around, in YouTube or podcasting. So I got sucked into real estate sales and I got my license, started selling real estate because we were having kids around the same time. So it kicked in this urgency to do something more serious. So I built a company from 0 to 350 million in sales within 4 years. And halfway through my fifth year, a large strategic company came and said, hey, we're growing through acquisition. We'd love to buy your company. So I sold 70%, kept 30. I moved in as an executive. We did about 22 M&A transactions within 18 months. And then COVID happened. So they stopped buying and I, sold the rest of my shares, left the company and then moved to Hawaii. I just retired, drinking margaritas on the beach until it got old, started looking at where to move next. And now we're in South Florida. I buy companies and I help people buy companies.
So many interesting things about that journey. First of all, you've lived in so many wonderful and beautiful places and you've got to experience so much. I want to go back to that moment where you're living in China and you think you're on top of the world, and then 2008 happened,
Yeah.
right? And so you're C-suite executive at that point. You're pretty much, set in your own words, right? Then making a big boy salary, and then all of that goes away. So you choose to strike it out on your own and become a consultant. What was that transition? Because that's your first time essentially not being an employee, right?
Yeah.
At that point in your life.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a tough transition because on the one end, it was just me. I was single and I was used to being on the road all the time, working long hours. I didn't really spend that much money. I was comfortable. So I had like cushion for some time. And by the time I came back, people were asking me to come and help right away. So I really didn't have a lot of like time where I can sit and wallow and feel sad about myself. But I did feel the lack of control part. That really bothered me because I had worked very hard to optimize that company, to create processes, procedures, culture, relationships. I had set up this beautiful thing that I thought will, this beautiful machine that's gonna like last for a long time. These external environmental things that happened that I didn't have control over came and just took everything away. That rocked my world in a way. Philosophically, I started thinking, okay, I had the perception of control that was not real, was not true. So that's where I decided that I needed to have ownership of my destiny, ownership of what I'm doing. And so that was kind of my journey where I went from, renting time or renting my expertise to owning things.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's flash forward a few years. Can you tell us a little bit more about this company that you built in a 4-year period? And what was that like? I mean, you kind of glossed over that the first time, but that's a massive undertaking in a very short period of time. So can you tell us about?
Yeah. It was a grind. The first year was tough. Like any other business, like any other startup, it's hard. It's a grind. You're not making money for a few months. You're learning. You're trying to find your niche. You're trying to find the market. You're trying to identify your ideal target profiles. And then something happens where you hit a well, if you will. And my well was 2012, and it was the beginning of the Zillows and the Redfins and the Realtor.com era. And most people did not know how to handle that consumer. They used to think of that consumer as annoying, finicky, can't be trusted, because most brokers at the time were used to finding business through referrals and through word of mouth, and did not have to like compete for it, and they were not used to that low conversion number. And because it's all new to me, I studied it, and I understood that this is a different type of funnel, this is a different type of like channel, and you just have to work the conversion for what it is, and then build systems, build processes. And so at a time I would sit with the CEO of Zillow and talk strategy, because they were small, they were still kind of a startup. And I would talk to the guys from realtor.com, the guys from Trulia, and we try to, figure it out. How can we serve that consumer better? How can we help them? How can we convert that consumer into a transaction? And so I got lucky in a way where I was curious. I came around like this time where this nascent industry that's just starting to grow. And I was curious enough to want to learn how to take advantage, or how to, make it successful. So we built systems that were completely different than what a normal real estate company will built like. So everything we did was different. The way we recruit, the way we train, the way we market, the way our systems run, the way our marketing runs, everything was catering to that online consumer. So almost like it's a real estate e-commerce company, and we were profitable. And so by the time like 4 years into it, as we grew, people noticed us, but not only because we're doing the volume, but also because we were profitable. Because a lot of these larger operations try to do the same thing, but they were not able to make money.
The Keller Williams of the world.
Yes, correct. So they were not able to make money. So when we were acquired, they wanted us essentially, it was more like an acqui-hire. They wanted us to teach them how to do it. Mm-hmm. And so, so all the efficiencies, everything, like the system, the culture, the way we attract talent, the way we acquire talent, the way we communicate with client, everything we did was targeted toward this high conversion, higher profit margin. And those guys were trying to do something completely unique with the way they used to do it back in the day, which doesn't work.
There's this famous quote, and I tell this to my coaching students all the time, but it's something along the lines of the opportunity happens when timing meets preparation. So a certain element of all of the success that you've experienced has to do with timing and just being in the right place in the right time. And it wasn't always easy. There was a grinding portion of it, right?
Yes.
But eventually that wellspring happened, like you said.
Exactly. Yeah. And also like my experience coming from manufacturing, coming from a place where you're building things to be large, to be scalable. So that's one of the gifts that I had was up to that point, I've only been in organizations that were multi-billion-dollar organizations. So I've seen how large companies are. Even when I was a kid, I remember when I was younger, my uncle worked for a candy factory in Casablanca. And actually, I used to go spend the summer with him, and I'll go help out picking up boxes and going delivering with the trucks and everything. So I always had this fascination with large production facilities, with all these different systems and all these different production steps, from this machine to that machine, from that machine to that machine. So I always had this visual for every business that I'm going to build. It needs to be scalable to be that large, and need to get to a place where we have a combination of big machines within our business. So even when we're doing real estate servicing, we talk about lead generation as a system. And then that lead generation goes into lead conversion as a system. And then it goes into getting referrals as a system. And then you go into operations as a system. And it goes into recruiting as a system. So all these different systems had to be scalable, where you're not only going to do 1, 2, 3 transactions, but you can do thousands of transactions. So how can we do this in a scalable way, not just onesie twosie? Because my goal has always been to build a large enough system so I can get myself out, because I did not want to be in the middle of it. I'm going to be just a bottleneck within that system. I don't want to be in the system. I want to be out of it. And so I always had this vision to be like from the outside looking in, and be able to just tweak and tinker and identify where the bottlenecks are, and then help resolve them.
Very cool. Now, a real estate business is a very different business than buying businesses that you do today,
Yes.
and certainly large scale like it was previously compared to small, medium businesses.
Yeah.
So walk us a little bit through that transition of how you ended up in this particular niche of rolling up smaller businesses, and how is that going for you?
So let me back. When I did my consulting days, a lot of the companies that I helped turn around their companies were either companies that were about to be acquired or companies that were acquired already by private equity, but they got into trouble because of the way the market shift. So I kind of understood the concept of business acquisition, and I was involved from an operational standpoint. And then later on, when I built my own and I sold, I liked that process. I enjoyed the transaction process so much that I volunteered to help the acquiring company buy more companies. So we were going out and buying property management companies, mortgage companies, title companies, escrow companies, all these different types of categories of businesses that serve the real estate world, but they're all different. And I noticed the patterns. I noticed that pretty much the sellers fall into one or two or three categories. The culture of the companies fall into two or three categories. The systems they have, the shape of the company, the health, the financial health, one or two categories. It's not that the patterns start repeating themselves. And then so once you start noticing the pattern, then you know how to approach when is a seller ready, how to approach the seller, how to get them to go from step one to step two, from considering selling to actually saying, yes, I want to sell, going through the due diligence, going through the closing process, getting them to be involved in the transition of the company from one owner to the other, getting people to accept and assimilate in the new world, in their new reality. And all of those things kind of like work together, having seen it from an operator to a consultant to an owner to an acquirer. So they're all kind of like it gave me different vantage points at different times, but the dynamics are all the same. And that was kind of the things that I got with my consulting days, because I would walk into a company that did plastic injection molding and I know what the cultural issues are. I can tell the people problems, and I'll walk into like Pilgrim Farms, which is a meat packing facility, and it's the same issues. And there's no, even though different industries, they're the same problems. They're all people problems. And so you start noticing that there's no difference. And then so from the acquisition standpoint, it's also the same. There's no difference.
Oh, very, very, very interesting. And this episode, by the way, is going to be quite a bit more technical than our normal episodes, but I am personally very fascinated by this topic. So we're going to just humor me
Yeah.
here. You said, in general, buying businesses is a very trendy topic at this moment, thanks to Cody Sanchez's of the world, and probably the way that a lot of real estate syndications have gone the last 2.5 years or so. There is a ton of money flooding this particular niche at this moment, but it's
Yeah.
not without reason, because the opportunity is there. I mean, there's so much truth to the fact they're calling it the great wealth transfer, right? Of all these baby boomers who have built these businesses over the course of their lifetime, and they don't even know that it's valuable and that they can sell it. They want
Yeah.
to give it to their kids. The kids don't want it, right?
Yeah.
So how are you going about finding these sellers? What are you looking for when you look to buy a business? What are you looking for about that business? What kind of industry is it? And how are you finding these sellers in the first?
Yeah. So I tend to like two categories of businesses. I like the B2B services, and I like accounting, marketing, compliance businesses that service other businesses and that have a recurring revenue model. I also like the B2C services that, like HVAC, plumbing, irrigation, security systems. Those are also have a recurring revenue model to them. There's an install and there's a maintenance program. So anything where I can acquire the customer once and I have revenue with them for 3 to 5, 10 years, that's what I like. And because that can compound, I don't have to like go find every day. I have to like recreate the same customer. I can maintain my existing customer by providing a high level of service, but also add to that book of business of other customers. And it's the same whether it is, again, accounting, marketing, compliance, wealth management, plumbing, whatever, it's all the same thing. Right now, we do business intelligence. We help companies have visibility over their data, especially now with AI. A lot of companies have multiple systems with multiple databases that don't talk to each other. So we come in and we help them build a larger data warehouse and have visibility into their company, and then be able to build tooling on top of that. So that's a business that I'm excited about right now, that we're growing. So they're all install base plus a recurring revenue model after that. And the way I look for them, I pick a category, I go find the NAICS code, which is like a specific code per industry. And then I'll go find all the companies within the geography that have that code. So it might be, let's say, irrigation business. So there might be, 50 irrigation businesses in Broward County in South Florida. And then so I'll get that list. I'll have someone add all the phone numbers, all the emails, and then I'll just communicate with the people. I'll just say, hey, my name is Jay. I'm company ABC. I love buying companies like yours. Who do you know is thinking about selling? Oh, I don't know. Great, wonderful. I really appreciate you thinking about it. How long have you been doing this? What did you do before that? Now, what's the most exciting thing that's happening in the industry for the last couple of years? Now, if you were to sell, when would that be? And how would you go about doing it? You sound like a great mentor or a great person to connect with. When is a good time for us to grab coffee? And so if you have enough coffees with people and you build a relationship, there's going to be a conversion percentage per industry or per whatever. And then you just take it from there.
That is so interesting to me. So would you say that you are actually now like on the phones, essentially cold calling still at this point in your business to generate those leads and to generate that business? Or do you have any systems in place
So
that's done for you?
if it's a new industry, so if it's in this industry where I've owned other companies in, I don't have to, because now like I become known within that industry, and then people come to me, like we have sellers come to us, say, hey, I heard that you guys did a transaction with so-and-so, he recommended you guys. I'm interested in selling my company. And that's also by design. It doesn't just happen by itself. As soon as we buy a company in a certain industry, we make sure everybody else knows that. All the other owners know. We do a video with the owner that we have. We ask him questions. How was the transaction? How do you like working with us? How's the transition? Are the people happy? Are the customers happy? We take that video and then we send it to everybody else, all the other owners, so they know. So it's not yeah, so it's not like random. But for the other owners, it seems like random. It seems like they're coming to us. There was no outreach. But if it's a new industry, then I will go to LinkedIn Navigator. I'll pick up the phone. I'll connect with people. I'll talk to brokers. I like to talk to suppliers of that industry. I found that the suppliers usually know who's going to sell. I like to talk to, it could be like a software supplier. It could be like a product, a material supplier. It could be an accountant. It could be an insurance person. There's always someone within that ecosystem that's connected and that just knows what's going on. And those suppliers want to be helpful because they want to keep the client and they want to acquire new clients. So if they're smart, they're very helpful, and then they'll help you acquire other companies. So I tend to kind of appreciate those introductions.
Absolutely. I think looking back through this whole conversation, there's been one pattern that I think I've noticed, and you mentioned pattern recognition earlier and how valuable that is in every industry, and that's people. People is the pattern. So regardless of what industry you're in, knowing how people operate, making those connections, fostering those relationships, it's the driver of everything, right?
Yes.
I mean, obviously operations is important, systems are important, but people is the number one thing.
100%. Right? Operation wouldn't run without the right people aligned toward the right goal. So
when you buy these businesses, are you trying to keep as many or as much of the people as possible in the businesses, or are the owners looking to get out? I mean, is it a case by case basis?
Yeah. So we are consultative. So we're here to solve the owner's problem. So the owner has a goal and we're helping them achieve that goal. So if the owner's pain is day-to-day operation, but they still love the business and they want to be involved, we want them to be involved. They can act as salespeople, they can act as recruiters, they'll pick whatever spot they want to take and they can stay involved. If the owner just has health issues, which a lot of our owners, usually what happens, one of the things that I tell the guys in our cohort in the acquisition collective, I tell them, you want to buy a business that no owner would want to sell unless they're about to die. You know what I mean? So that's the business you want to buy, because that's such a good business. The only reason they're going to sell is because, they're about to die or maybe some divorce situation or something. But most of the time it's usually health issues. And if that person that's the only reason they want to sell, that's a great business. That person really loves that business. That's a business that's profitable. That's a business that's easy to run. That's a business that has good people. That's a business that has good customers. That's a business that has good suppliers. That's a business where it's chill and the guy just collecting is cash flow and doesn't never thinks about selling until he gets that heart attack or some like diagnosis or whatever. And then it's like, oh man, I gotta take care of my people. I need to transition that business to someone else who can take care of it.
That is an absolute knowledge bomb. So, for anyone listening who's ever thought about buying a business, that piece of information by
Yes.
itself it's worth its weight in gold. So, thank you for that. I want to transition a little bit here back to the normally scheduled theme of this program, which is a little bit about health, wellness, mindset, and success. So, you retired. You actually did it. You moved to
Yeah.
the beach in Hawaii. You were living the retirement life, and then it got boring, right? So, talk us through that a little bit. You chose to go back to work even though you didn't have to. What does it look like different this time? What are you prioritizing this time? Obviously, you've got a beautiful family. I know you want to spend time with them. You've even started this group about how to be a better father. So can you talk us through sort of the mindset of all of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. It's very common among the post-exit founders. It's a very common theme where when they sell their company, they think there's this euphoria, this big hoopla, fireworks, confetti coming down, excitement, and then they take some time to travel, they take some time to enjoy themselves and chill. But then after a while they start feeling this emptiness and then this like loss of purpose, because I think as entrepreneurs what makes us unique, what makes us push through obstacles, what makes us build what we do is we truly have a sense of purpose, a sense of solving big problems, a sense of like helping people grow and transform. This what makes it worth it. The money is a reward, but it's a way to keep the score, but it's really not the driver. When you strip everything away, what you find is that the thing that all great entrepreneurs enjoy from building business is that mentorship that they have for their people and that transformation that they have on their clients and that collaboration and the relationship they have with their suppliers and with the whole ecosystem. And then once that's gone, there's a lack of fulfillment. Like, who am I? What am I? What's my point? What's the purpose of me existing? And I think entrepreneurs need something that's bigger than them, bigger than themselves to work toward, to make an impact on the world.
That is absolutely fantastic. And I could not agree more. And I'm still pre-exit, but I couldn't imagine a life where I wasn't building something, right? Where
Yes.
the reward is the creation itself. It's about the journey. And I've often heard like if you want to be happy, you just stop moving the goalpost, right? You just
Yes.
stop where you are. But for me, that wouldn't be happy. That would be nothing, right?
Yes.
We need to keep setting our sights further and building more. And I think that is part of what it means to truly be an entrepreneur is the creation of something, anything.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you can be happy wherever you are. I mean, happiness is an inside game. It has nothing to do with external things. It's like it's within you. You decide, that you're going to be happy in the moment, at whatever stage you are. Anything external has nothing to do with how you feel about yourself from the inside. And yeah, so for me, happiness is an inside game. The game that we play on the outside is a growth game. So how far are we growing? And then it's a contribution game. So how much impact are we making on the world? And those are three different games that you play in three different ways. And you can play all three of them at the same time, but you need to know what game you're playing so you're not confusing the two.
We're running a little low on time, but I want you to tell us
Sure.
briefly about your two mentorship groups that you have going on. So you're teaching people how to buy businesses and you're teaching
Yeah.
people or you're creating a community around best practices in fatherhood, correct?
Yeah. Yes. So the Acquisition Collective is the small business acquisition group. So our members go through a 12-week program where they learn how to identify the right business for them, how to locate those businesses, how to approach the sellers or the brokers who are listing those businesses, how to underwrite them, how to do the financial models, how to do the transaction and due diligence. And the goal is to, transform those businesses, add value to them and scale them. So we go cradle to grave, if you will, until post exit. So the members go through a 12-week program and they stay in the community for 12 months. And the goal is for them to acquire business within 6 to 12 months. That's the goal. The Raising Lions community is around raising happy, healthy, and resilient kids. We've noticed the negative impact of COVID and of technology and of social media and of all these crazy trends that are happening right now in the world. And, from an education system, the food system, all these different systems that, around us are not providing the best outcomes for our kids. And so essentially the goal of the Raising Lions community is to give people awareness that there are other ways of doing it, to allow fathers to share different approaches, different goals, and give them the courage to do things differently than what their parents did or what their neighbors or friends and family do. And then just raise the standards. You know what I mean? So we don't have to raise our kids as herd followers. They can be unique. They can be lions. They can be strong. They can be providing. They can be resilient. They can walk their own path. So that's the goal of that community.
I love the name. I love everything about what you just said. All right. Thank you so much, Jay, for blessing us with your presence here on this podcast. It's been an absolutely wonderful episode. Do you want to give any sort of shout outs to links to your organization, your phone number? How can the people get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
Yeah. They can find me on all the socials, Jay Bourgana, or they can go on acquisitionscollective.biz, and I'll give you the link and you can put it in the show notes.
Perfect. Thanks so much for being here. That's a wrap for today's episode of Beyond the Deal. I hope you got some valuable insights that you can apply to your own investing journey. Now, if you've enjoyed this conversation, do me a favor, hit that follow button, leave a review, and share this episode with somebody who you think could benefit from it. It really helps the show grow and bring on even more incredible guests. If you want to go deeper, make sure to follow me on your socials. You can find the links in the show notes in the description below. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. Until then, keep going beyond the deal.